Right now, I'm in Sarajevo in Bosnia. You can see the amazing city, or some of it, out of the window behind me. And I'm sketching on this holiday with the smallest setup I've ever used. It literally all, apart from my sketchbook, it literally all fits in the palm of my hand. I wanted to do this because I wanted to do something different when I'm on holiday. Whenever I'm on holiday, I always do something a bit different. And I also have found it incredibly freeing. The first thing I'm going to show you in this video is exactly what I brought with me. Then, I've been here 4 days and so far I've filled up a surprisingly large amount of my sketchbook. So I'll do a quick flick through of that. And finally, we are going to look out of this window and do an ultra minimalist sketch so that you can get the idea of how I've been doing all this nonsense. So what do we have with us? Firstly, it's very bougie, but I've got 2 fountain pens. One is a ultra fine fountain pen. We'll get into that a little bit more in another video, but this is actually a new fountain pen I've got. The other is a musical nib, or a very bold fountain pen. Now the reason for having a very fine and a very bold pen will become evident later. But you could probably understand, you could bring a few day nib, which has got all of that variation in it, or you could have a very fine fineliner and a bold fineliner. These things would be more than acceptable sort of solutions. Next we have our colours, and look at this, literally, well, thicker than a credit card, but this is exactly the dimensions of a credit card. It's actually made by Colin, that's at Woodward Watercolours Sun, and available on Colin's Etsy. Inside I have 8 colours. These 8 colours I will list down below. I'll show you in a moment as well. They're basically interesting colours which I thought would kind of fit the Bosnian feel, the Bosnian streets. We'll pop that there for using in just a moment. Next, 2 water brushes. Now, water brushes have that sort of water reservoir inside, so I don't need anything else, like a water pot. And then this one is a flat brush, and this one has a little bit more of a fine point. Now, I've often sort of said how much I dislike these, but I always sort of amend that to say, yeah, I don't like them, but they have a purpose, and that purpose is that they are lightweight. So often they're the best thing for a situation, even if they're not that good as an item in their own. Now the last thing is my sketchbook. This is by Stillman & Byrne, same as my normal. It's just square and a little bit smaller. And I will just have a quick flick through and I'll show you what I've been doing. So this was my first test of everything. This was in the airport. And I just thought, right, I'm going to get my stuff out and see, is it easy just to get out? You can see my colours are a bit rich, but I'm getting used to what's going on. On the airplane, sketching a man who was asleep across the way, inventing an airplane whilst on the flight. What I've been doing, I sort of featured this in one of my recent videos as well, is the idea of adding text. I've been just writing myself a little haiku to remember each scene. So this is actually looking out this same window. We're in a different view now, but look out the window, a view of Sarajevo, but coffee awaits. That is, I did this early in the morning and I hadn't had my coffee yet. There's my coffee. And hopefully you get the idea. Lots and lots of stuff, really quick and simple, using a lightweight setup. Now here's our colours. So I've got one blue, cerulean blue chromium, lightly granulating. I've got light red, this is by Winsor Newton, which is just a really nice colour. Quinacridone magenta, why did I pick that out? I wanted something bright and bold and hadn't used it in a while. And then Naples yellow, which is like this soft Mediterranean yellow, slightly opaque, so a bit interesting. And then we've got a lot of very interesting colours. Lunar Earth, Urban Red by Schmink, Tundra Violet by Schmink, and Moonglow, all hypergranulating. Quite similar, and I kind of wanted to use this holiday to decide which of these I prefer, which might end up in a future palette. And we're almost at the end. There's a little sketch of some flowers on the table of our restaurant yesterday, just waiting for the food to arrive. Here's a sketch from a photo. So I did it this morning on this very table. Another sketch from a photo, also this morning. And then the last thing in here, a little sketch from this morning in a cafe. I just found this interesting car and cobbled street. Look at this. This is the vibe we're going for. Look at that. Sort of very minimalist feel. Minimalist colours, simple lines and focus. That is kind of the aim of today's process. So let's pop over another page. Now, the scene that we are sketching is this one right out of the window. And it is, frankly, totally overwhelming. I think we can all agree that. So the key is not just to look at the entire scene, but to try and find within that something to focus on. Now in the sketchbook, flick through, you can possibly recognise the minaret that I was sketching. But we're going to do a different scene today. We're going to focus right down, sort of in front of me here. And I think when we actually just do the sketch, if I take this as a little screenshot, it will all make sense. Now, the first thing I need to do, of course, is get my view set up. And now we really are ready to go. So I can talk you through our kind of what I'm calling ultra minimalist process. So the first thing is to use a really fine pen. Now this is actually, it's a posting nib. It's got a slightly bent nib. And you'll see that gives us an incredibly fine quality of line. That lets us just go gently but quickly. And the focus of our starting point in any scene is the focus. Because in an ultra minimalist scene, well, we kind of want to just get that focus down quickly. And maybe we add to it, maybe we don't. But if we never do the focus, we never do the interesting bit, well, we're not going to be minimalist. We're going to have overworked all the page, run out of time, and when you're traveling, you'll have had to move on. So I'm finding in this kind of giant cityscape I can see, I'm finding one of the many minarets and just deciding that that's my focus. I'm going to start there and then build a few objects around it. So next to this one, we've got this quirky, I don't even know what to call it, quirky top of a building. And you see this really fine line. It helps us move around. And if I go a bit wrong, if there's a little loop in there, if I add some accidental texture like that, it's not going to matter. We're going to be able to come back and with our bold pen, we'll be able to, what I'm going to call, correct it. If it's even wrong, what is wrong these days? But we'll be able to amend it. We'll be able to change it. Like I just got the angle of that roof quite wrong. I can move it and I can come back with my bold pen and make it make a little bit more sense. The same with details like windows. I'm just going to mark in some edges of windows and not worry about them too much because the bold pen will help us a lot there. And I'll show you that in just a moment. Coming forward, I'm already looking to think, how can I frame off my scene? That's like a really key word here. How can I finish my scene instead of filling the page? And I've got this sort of intricate roof. It's got wires coming up, little satellite dishes. It's got chimneys. It's quite on its own interesting. And that comes all the way across my sort of vision, my viewpoint. And that, I think, is my frame, my sort of bottom edge of the scene, already sorted with this line just cutting across. Now I just need to build in what happens in between here. And then we know that we've got that focus down, we've got the beginnings of the frame already within a couple of minutes. Again, not focusing too much on details will make them make sense seen, but mapping them in, all these windows on this roof. Got another interesting roof just cutting across here. It's quite a funky perspective because I'm above everything. I think we're on the 7th floor of just a residential building, but we're kind of looking down on most things. It's very mind-bending. And now, when I come to this roof, I notice in front of it, and quite close on, is a tree. So here we go, we've already found our next sort of frame, the edge coming over here. We can build that in. There we go, little frame. So now we've kind of penned in what we're aiming for. We penned in here, penned in here. I mean pen like what you do to animals. You pen them in, not a pen. But I see that I've confused myself. Now, coming over, enough of that waffle. We now just need to work out what do we need to do to finish our scene, to actually capture what we sort of found interesting about this scene. For me, it's like this higgledy-piggledy nature of textures and roofs and wires and all these kind of things just flowing over. I say wires, there's not actually many wires in this scene, but there's a lot of wires in a lot of the scenes I've been doing. And just finding the roofs, I guess that's the higgledy-piggledy bit I'm noticing now. The roofs are kind of all crisscrossing and higgledy-piggledy in front of each other. And so I just want to get that feel of that calamitous nature. Now, what I have is this dramatic view out sort of for miles and miles. But what's that view consisting of? Well, if we, again, just find key elements, we've got like this steep cliff of, well, it's a very steep hill with a couple of houses. We could just like mark in these little house shapes, but really what we're seeing is the textures of trees going up. We've got another one that comes over here. This one's got a little fort on it. So that fort can just get itself mapped in, may or may not be important later. And then one last kind of hill coming in here, little hill coming all the way across. So we'll map that one in, and it sort of ducks down like that. And the other bit, which is really challenging to consider how we're going to do it, are all the myriad of buildings and roofs that we can see going all the way back into the distance. So our challenge is how sort of few of them do we actually really need? So I'll just try marking in just a few little shapes and just see how it feels. If we just do a few shapes here and there, trying to scale them appropriately for what we actually see. And leaving lots of empty space. It doesn't need filling at all. As we get closer to our minaret, maybe we add in a few more of these, a bit more specifically, a bit kind of more of these roof shapes. There's another tree in the background here. We can build up a couple more of these little lines. And actually I think that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to just get lost if I keep going and going. We won't be minimalist, we'll be filling the page. As a brief interlude, just for 10 seconds, I wanted to let you know my free course is linked down below. If you enjoy my style, my ideas, then you've got nothing to lose by giving it a go. A week of sketching ideas to get you started. So next, my really bold pen. And this time, look, each line is so certain. In all of these windows we noticed, we can just suddenly bring out all of these roof lines where we see deep shadow. We can suddenly bring out like that as well. Up here, we can make contrast happen instantly. And it's just dramatically simplifying the scene that we have in front of us. Because these bold lines, that's what they do. They simplify, they make it obvious. Trying to avoid being too cartoony with it, trying to avoid being too illustrative. And that's where not doing too much comes in. So keeping it really simple, keeping each line that we add sort of purposeful. It's adding a specific shadow, it's adding something on purpose. Down here, this building, I'm bringing it into focus. Or at least that's my aim. That's my aim with all these marks, bringing it into focus. What else are we missing in this space? Another couple of suggestions of roofs. A bit more of that higgledy-piggledy nature. Have overused that word, haven't I? It's starting to annoy me. Is there another word? Tumble down. It's another way of saying it, isn't it? What else? Someone in the comments go on, suggest to me another word for higgledy-piggledy. So next time I do a video like this, I don't annoy myself by repeating one silly phrase over and over. Into the foreground, where we've got this roof, I'm going to make it bolder, more contrasting. And you'll see why this contrast is so important in a moment as well, but bolder and more contrasting, so it really feels like a purposeful frame. Same for our foreground tree here. Not everywhere, so break it up a little bit. It's another one of our trees in here. And maybe even this fort can just, doesn't have to be like totally resolved, but just explaining it a tiny bit makes it feel more purposeful. And there we go. Is there anything else? Go on then, let's just, can find one more edge to this roof, and that will explain just a little bit more of the perspective of the scene. It explains that we're looking down on it. And I think that's enough. He says it's enough. Get out my ultra fine pen. And if we wanted, we could spend a little while now just doing some hatching. That helps explain the light and the dark and the shadow. What I've got at the moment is actually very close to sunset. So I've got some drastically changing light and dark in front of me, which is fun to attempt to capture a little bit of. There we go. That'll probably do for today. Yeah, I think that'll do. Pop a signature on, and now, when I say that'll do, I didn't mean we're finished. What I mean is that'll do until we bring out the colours. So, time for some colours. Now, what I've got here, tiny, tiny, tiny palette, and just a couple of brushes. What's really important with these brushes is controlling the amount of water, because it's so easy to just flood things, do too much, do too little. And instead of trying to be really clever with the colours, I let them be a little bit watery, very watery, a little bit random. And that plays to the strengths of these water brushes, like big time, really plays to the strengths of the water brushes. If I try and control things with them, I get frustrated. They're just not good quality brushes. I don't know how else to put it other than they're not good quality brushes. But if I just apply a few marks, plenty of water, they're pretty fun, all right? So rather than trying to make them brilliant, make them what they are. Simple little tools which can add a bit of fun to a sketch when we're on holiday, for example. And here I'm picking out key areas. These lovely red roofs, which we can find elsewhere as well. We can pop splatters in to suggest, like this is suggesting there's more of these ideas in there. Can add in a little bit more warmth. So this is really simple mix. And you can see the amount of water on the page from how the colours are moving. And just finding a few of these roofs. Simple big brush strokes. Not painting the frame, keeping that for now at least as just negative space. It pushes us in. Next, bit of blue, can neutralise all that down. And hopefully if we might have to add a little bit more of our orangey red in there. But we'll end up with something like these kind of grey tones. And just gives the sort of thing I initially said was the focus a little bit more emphasis, doesn't it? A little bit more. Just a little bit more interesting. Now, the last thing I want to do, I do like the green I can mix with these. And it's discovering new things like this, which is the other reason. Just bring out a different palette when you're on holiday. Bring out something new. So here, I'm loving this kind of really soft green, which comes from Naples yellow and cerulean blue. Really enjoying the feel of it. And I can just use that into some of these allegedly green areas, these foresty mountains. Try and make it nice and smooth, nice and watery. Just let that flow and move through the scene. And hopefully you can feel it kind of building up. When you can feel it building up, we're probably almost done. So I move to this very tiny water brush. I don't squeeze it much, so I don't pick up too much water. And I can just add, just like we did with that bold pen, a couple of bold touches. Where do I want to highlight points of interest, points of contrast? Well, wherever that is, that's where I add my bolder little bit of colour. Look at that. Just what do we need to do? The question is, what do we need to do to make this a tiny bit more interesting? Never doing more than we need to. If we spot ourselves doing more than we need to, pull it back. Stop. Maybe a little bit here, just to let the contrast of that roof pull out a bit more. And can I get away? Can I get away with it? With a little bit of, a kind of bit of blue into these greens. Just cheating my way to interest by allowing things to, allowing the colours to do the hard work. Fill in a couple of these. Go on then, and then this is supposed to be a house, so let's just give it that little red touch. And I don't need a sky, I could add some splatters. And that is going to be my scene done. So, my nomenclature, what I do for my holiday sketches is I write the date, so today, the 15th of October. You'll be able to see how far I am behind on my editing schedule. And that's Wednesday. And the view, so it's a view of Sarajevo from the window. So I know I was inside, but doing it from observation, not from a photo. Then I write myself a little blurb as a haiku. Hope you found that interesting. Hope it gave you a little bit of, let's call it inspirational confidence that you can go on holiday with very few things and yet fill up a lot of sketchbook. And maybe because you brought less things, you fill up more of your sketchbook. Let me know in the comments your favourite ways of reducing what you bring with you when you go on holiday for sketching. And I will, I'll see you in the next one.